In less than 24 months, Earth permanently lost nearly 20% of its mature giant sequoias, living beings that had survived for thousands of years. As their native range in California is gradually turning into a severe fire zone, with massive wildfires growing beyond control, a group of scientists carried out a bold experiment, moving these young trees to Scotland, a land known for cold weather, drizzle, and a climate completely different from the Mediterranean conditions of their native habitat. Scientists once predicted this would become a new graveyard. But the latest data has stunned the entire botanical world. They are not only surviving, they are growing faster than individuals of the same species in the United States. What is really happening? Hit like, subscribe to the channel, and join us as we decode the greatest ecological migration in history right now. For thousands of years, giant sequoias have been symbols of endurance. The General Sherman tree in Sequoia National Park holds the record as the largest living organism on Earth by wood volume. These trees have survived dozens of changes in human dynasties, hundreds of wildfires, and record-breaking freezes. But since 2012, an unprecedented crisis scenario has unfolded. Forestry data confirms that California is going through its driest period in 1,200 years. In just the 2020 to 2021 period, megafires such as the Castle Fire and the KNP complex destroyed nearly 20% of the global mature giant sequoia population. This is a severe loss for a tree species whose bark can be 60 centimeters thick and acts as a powerful thermal shield. Alongside fire, bark beetles are the silent destroyers. Normally, thick tree resin can neutralize invading insects, but prolonged drought reduces hydraulic pressure inside the trunk. This allows parasites to attack directly into the vascular system, causing 80-meter-tall trees to suffer structural collapse and die standing for the first time in recorded history. The Sierra Nevada ecosystem is changing faster than the species can adapt. Field analysis shows that California is becoming too hot, creating a biological threshold that prevents new generations of seedlings from reaching maturity. This raises a life-or-death question. Will California still be a viable environment for giant sequoias in the next century? And if the answer is uncertain, what should we do? To search for an external conservation solution, researchers shifted their focus toward the North Atlantic. Scotland currently has about 5,000 giant sequoias, most of them planted during the Victorian era. The latest field data from Benmore Botanic Garden and the Highlands has recorded breakthrough growth indicators. On average, a giant sequoia in Scotland grows 50 to 80 centimeters in height each year, far exceeding the 30 to 40 centimeters recorded in control populations in California. Why would a land with an oceanic temperate climate support better growth for a plant species originally adapted to the high radiation intensity of its native range? The reason lies in the hydrological nature of its root system. Giant sequoias have roots that are paradoxically shallow compared with their enormous size. They spread across hundreds of square meters, but reach less than 2 meters deep. As a result, they depend completely on moisture in the topsoil rather than deep groundwater veins. Physiological analysis shows that the giant sequoia is a surface moisture-loving plant. On Scotland's west coast, where air humidity is regularly above 80%, a continuous capillary flow is established from the soil to the treetop without major energy loss. In the United States, the tree must spend 90% of its metabolic resources maintaining a water column inside the trunk under heat pressure. In Scotland, that energy is optimized entirely for biomass accumulation. The difference also lies in rainfall distribution. California has long dry summers, causing severe water deficits in the shallow root system. In contrast, Scotland receives 1,500 to 3,000 millimeters of rainfall, distributed evenly across all 4 seasons. This stable moisture saturation allows the roots to operate at maximum efficiency 365 days a year without experiencing a single day of water shortage. But it does not stop there. Another geological secret has been discovered. The soil of the Scottish Highlands is rich in organic matter and slightly acidic, which accidentally matches almost perfectly with the ancient volcanic soil environment in which this species evolved millions of years ago. Microbial analysis from the University of Stirling confirms that Scotland's symbiotic mycorrhizal fungi help giant sequoias absorb minerals 1.5 times faster than in the degraded soil environments now found in the United States. Scotland is not just a temporary refuge, it is an optimized version of living conditions that giant sequoias have never had in their native range. However, the advantage from the soil environment is only half the story. To fully decode this unusual growth rate, we need to analyze the biological mechanisms that allow giant sequoias to extract resources directly from the atmosphere, an ability that is gradually being disabled in California. In Scotland's coastal regions, fog appears very frequently. The needle-like leaf structure of the giant sequoia works like a high-efficiency moisture collection system, absorbing water directly from the atmosphere into the vascular system. The latest scientific reports show that thanks to abundant surface vapor, giant sequoias here can maintain optimal cellular hydration even during periods of low rainfall, something populations in the United States cannot do because high temperatures cause fog to disappear too quickly. Radioisotope analysis shows that up to 25% of the water inside Scottish giant sequoia trunks comes from the air. In California, as ocean temperatures rise and fog disappears, that number drops below 5%. In the United States, the tree must spend significant energy transporting water from the roots up 80 meters against gravity. In Scotland, water is supplied from the crown, helping the tree save an enormous amount of energy. Furthermore, Scotland has the advantage of maritime temperature stability. Winters here do not bring long periods of extreme freezing that can damage meristem tissue. Cool summers also minimize water loss through the leaves. When temperatures pass the 30°C threshold, as they do in the United States, giant sequoias close their stomata to conserve water, causing photosynthesis to stall. In Scotland, ideal temperatures allow the trees to maintain maximum photosynthetic intensity throughout the growing season. Data collected from sensors attached to tree trunks shows that giant sequoias in Scotland are consuming CO2 at a very high rate. A mature giant sequoia here can absorb 10 times more carbon than native tree species such as pine or oak. This turns them into some of the most powerful carbon storage systems in the fight against global climate change. This truth leads to an even bolder plan, planting giant sequoias on a large scale to turn Scotland into a carbon storage centre for Europe. But this plan has faced strong criticism from native conservationists. The strong growth of giant sequoias in Scotland has led to an important academic discussion among ecologists. One side supports the method of assisted migration, arguing that actively moving species into suitable environments is necessary to prevent biodiversity loss, with the reality that 20% of the population in the United States was lost in a short period. Relying only on natural recovery is considered a strategy filled with potential risks. However, critics warn about the danger of turning the giant sequoia into an invasive species. With its enormous size, the giant sequoia is a plant with absolute biological dominance. When mature, its wide canopy creates large shaded areas, suppressing photosynthesis and the growth of lower layer plants. Furthermore, its leaf litter contains specific chemical compounds that alter soil pH, negatively affecting native microorganisms and insects that have existed in Scotland for thousands of years. Scientists also point to the lesson of radiata pine in Australia, which was originally planted for forestry purposes but later spread aggressively, turning rich ecosystems into areas poor in biodiversity. In reality, giant sequoias do not only compete for space, they also affect nutrient sources in the soil. Their surface root systems absorb much of the available minerals, and their leaf litter changes soil acidity. This is a significant biological transformation, making the environment less favorable for endemic plant species to grow. Therefore, scientists must carefully weigh the protection of a rare tree species against the preservation of the original character of the native ecosystem. The Scottish Highlands have limited land. Many people believe this land should be used to restore Caledonian pine forests or Atlantic oak woodlands, ecosystems that are already on the edge of decline. Is it fair to sacrifice native species in order to save an alien species from America? The truth is, there is no simple answer. Researchers are now closely monitoring the impact of giant sequoias on local biodiversity. An experiment in Argyll showed that native birds have begun using the dense canopies of giant sequoias for nesting because they provide better protection from storms and wind. However, ground plants decline sharply beneath them. This is an ecological trade-off filled with risk. Bringing giant sequoias to Scotland is not simply about planting trees. It is part of a global genetic conservation network. Scientists are quietly collecting seeds from the healthiest individuals that survived the wildfires in California and sending them around the world, from New Zealand and Australia to France, but Scotland is the key factor in this strategy. Why was Scotland chosen as a priority region? While giant sequoia populations in France or Australia are beginning to suffer negative effects from increasing heat waves, the population in Scotland continues to maintain stable growth. Today, research institutions in Edinburgh are establishing an outdoor genetic resource storage area, where individuals are closely monitored biologically, forming an important genetic databank for the future. Even more surprisingly, researchers discovered that giant sequoias have a flexible ability to adapt to photoperiod. Even though Scotland has extremely long summer days and very short winter days, very different from California, this species has learned to reprogram its biological clock. It makes maximum use of 18 hours of daylight per day during the northern summer to accumulate energy and prepare for the long winter. This ability to adjust gene expression proves that giant sequoias possess a highly flexible genetic code, helping them overcome geographic barriers once believed to be absolute limits for the species. Dispersing giant sequoias across multiple continents, especially in the safe environment of Scotland, ensures one thing: even if the worst disaster completely wipes out giant sequoia forests in the United States, this tree species will still survive. Scotland is no longer only holding trees, it is holding the living genetic code of organisms that have survived for thousands of years, so that one day in the future, we may bring them back to restore their original homeland in California. We are living in an age when the concepts of native and non-native are being blurred by the harshness of climate change. The story of giant sequoias growing strong in Scotland is not only a forestry success, it is a warning about the state of the environment. When an old environment is no longer safe, living beings are forced to migrate, and humans are forced to become the guides for that migration. The young trees in Scotland today could live for up to 3,000 years. That means when these trees reach the largest size in the world around them will be completely different from today. We are planting trees for a future we cannot even imagine. Scotland is gradually becoming a new growth environment for this giant plant species, where natural conditions are optimized under scientific supervision. The growth of giant sequoias in a new land is proof of humanity's urgent effort to protect Earth's biological heritage. The question of whether this is the optimal conservation solution or a forced replacement will be answered by ecological changes over the centuries ahead. Thank you for joining us in this ecological investigation. The story of migrating giant sequoias is only the beginning of a new chapter in conservation history. What do you think about moving alien species into new lands to save them? Leave your opinion in the comments below. We would love to hear diverse perspectives from the international community. See you again in the next videos.